The galaxy was never silent, but that night in deep space the silence felt heavy. The alien fleets had gathered near the edge of a forgotten star system, their ships floating like shadows against the black. Hundreds of vessels, sleek, sharp, and burning with weapons, watched the void. They had gathered here because of a signal. A strange, broken signal that spoke of something impossible, something that no one believed could exist. The commanders of different empires sat in their command bridges, their eyes fixed on the scanners. The signal was weak, but the meaning was clear. A human warship was moving through the void. For the aliens, the very idea of such a thing felt unreal. Humans were clever, dangerous, and stubborn, yes, but their technology was never the most advanced. They were known for strange ideas, for surviving against odds, but never for building something beyond the logic of science. And yet, the readings were undeniable. A ship was approaching, larger than any fleet carrier, heavier than any dreadnought, and older than any design still in use. Its outline was jagged, almost broken, as if the ship was built from pieces of forgotten machines. But the energy around it, the gravity it carried in silence, made every alien heart tremble. "Impossible," whispered one alien commander, his long hands curling against the armrest of his chair. "No human could have built this," another voice answered, rough and nervous. "Then explain what our sensors are showing." "It is real. It is coming closer." The fleet adjusted its position. Thousands of weapons pointed at the empty darkness. Lights flickered across battle stations, and every soldier prepared for what they thought would be just another war. But deep inside, fear crawled. The ship appeared slowly. At first it was nothing but a shadow against the stars. Then it grew larger, pulling itself from the dark like a giant awakening after centuries of sleep. Its surface glimmered faintly, not with lights but with scars. It looked wounded, as if it had fought endless wars, yet it still moved with power. The silence broke with a chilling sound, a hum, low and deep, echoing through the void. It was not radio, not signal, not any known communication. It was like a pulse, something that rattled inside the bones of every being who heard it. Crews across the alien fleets shivered, their eyes wide, their breaths shallow. One alien soldier whispered to another, "Why does it sound alive?" No one answered. The human warship kept coming. It did not speed, it did not hide, it did not even raise its weapons. It just moved forward, as if it had no fear of the thousands waiting for it. The fleets tightened formation. Orders spread across the channels. But still the warship advanced, ignoring everything around it. Inside the alien bridges, commanders argued. Some wanted to fire immediately, to erase the ship before it came too close. Others wanted to wait, to study, to understand how this impossible thing had come to exist. But beneath their words, one truth lingered. They were afraid. Scanners tried to read the ship's systems, but the data was nonsense. The ship carried no fuel, yet it moved. It had no clear weapons, yet it burned with hidden power. Its size should have made it heavy, slow, but it moved with unnatural grace. Every reading clashed with logic. "It cannot be real," one technician stammered. "Every line of data breaks our models. It should not exist." And yet, there it was. Real. Moving. Unstoppable. The fleets drew back slightly, though no one admitted it. Ships that had conquered entire civilizations now hesitated before a single vessel. The warship slowed, drifting to a halt at the very center of the gathered armadas. For a long moment nothing happened. It just floated there, a dark monument against the stars. Then something stranger happened. The lights across alien ships flickered. Power systems shook. Weapons went offline for seconds before restarting. Entire fleets trembled as if touched by an invisible hand. And yet the human warship had not moved. It simply existed, and its presence bent the rules of space itself. Whispers spread across the alien channels. Is it a weapon? Is it a machine? Is it alive? No answer came. The silence was unbearable. Commanders leaned forward, eyes fixed on the shape before them, waiting for the first strike. But the ship did not fire. It did not speak. It just waited, as if daring them to act. One alien admiral clenched his fists. "This is a trick. Humans are weak. This ship is just a shell. Fire on it now." But another voice, old and cautious, stopped him. "And if it is not? If this ship is what it seems, then our weapons will not matter." The crews across the fleets held their breath. Time stretched. The human warship floated in silence, carrying a weight no one understood. It had no name, no signal, no flag. But it carried fear. For the first time in generations, the galaxy felt something it had almost forgotten. Not curiosity, not anger, not pride. It felt the sharp edge of uncertainty. Something had arrived that defied every rule, every law, every line of logic. And it was human. No one fired. No one moved. Thousands of ships, billions of lives, all frozen by the sight of one impossible vessel. The warship turned slightly, its scars catching the light of a dying star. And then a single line of sound cut through the silence, low, distant but clear. "You should not have called me." Every commander froze. Every soldier felt their blood turn cold. The voice was human, heavy with age, sharp with warning. And with that one sentence, the galaxy knew. This was not a mistake. This was not an illusion. The impossible had arrived. The silence after the voice ended was worse than any weapon strike. Across thousands of alien bridges, crews looked at one another in fear. Every commander felt it in their chest. The voice was not only human, it was something older, heavier, carrying the weight of battles long forgotten. The human warship had spoken, and the words were not empty. They were a warning. Ships adjusted their distance, pulling back without orders. Even the most fearless warriors felt their instincts scream to run. Yet no one dared move too far, afraid the warship would notice. It sat there in the center of the fleet, silent again, as if waiting. Inside one alien flagship, the Grand Council of Commanders argued over open channels. Their voices overlapped, angry, afraid, desperate. "It is a trick. Humans have no such technology. This ship is a ghost. Ghosts do not disable entire fleets with a whisper. Did you not feel it when our weapons failed? Our systems shook because of its presence. We must strike now. If we wait, it will destroy us all. And if we fire and it reflects the attack? Do you want to erase your fleets with your own weapons?" The voices filled the air, but no one had answers. For every question, another mystery rose. For every argument, fear silenced the next word. Among the soldiers, whispers spread faster than orders. Many had heard stories of humans, creatures too stubborn to die, too clever to control. They had seen colonies destroyed, planets burned, yet humans always returned. Some said humans fought with madness, others said with hope. But no one had ever seen this. A ship that moved without engines, carried scars like trophies, and bent the rules of space itself. One young alien pilot, his eyes wide with terror, whispered to his squadron commander, "It is not a ship. It feels like a grave." The commander did not answer. Because deep down he felt the same. The human warship remained still, but strange things began to happen. Ships closest to it felt gravity shift, pulling against them though no planet was nearby. Lights dimmed, systems trembled, and strange codes appeared in their computers. Codes no one could read, yet somehow familiar. "It is inside our systems," one technician cried. "It is not attacking, but it is looking. It is watching us." Across the fleets, panic rose. The commanders gave strict orders to remain calm, but fear spread like fire. Soldiers who had faced monsters, black holes, and wars without end now felt powerless before one silent vessel. And then came the first test. A small empire, arrogant and hungry for power, decided to act. Their admiral, red-skinned and furious, shouted across the channel, "If you will not act, then we will." Their fleet of 200 ships broke formation, engines roaring bright, weapons charging. The other empires watched in silence as the smaller fleet surrounded the human warship like hunters circling prey. The admiral raised his hand and gave the order. Hundreds of beams of energy, missiles and plasma fire shot toward the human ship. The void lit up in burning color, shaking the space around it. Explosions rippled, flames spread, the darkness glowed with the heat of destruction. But when the fire cleared, the human warship was still there, unmoved, untouched, not even a scratch. Silence spread across the galaxy once more. The alien fleet that had attacked froze, their commanders unable to breathe. Their most powerful weapons, strong enough to split moons, had done nothing. The warship had not even raised a shield. It had simply absorbed everything as if fire itself could not burn it. And then, for the first time, the ship moved. Slowly, calmly, it turned to face the fleet that had attacked. Its scars reflected the dim starlight, and its eyes, if they could be called that, burned faintly in the dark. Every alien heart pounded. Every ship felt the weight of that gaze. Then it happened. Without firing, without moving forward, the alien fleet began to vanish. Not explode, not shatter, vanish. One by one, ships blinked out of existence like light snuffed by an unseen hand. Crews screamed over comms, begging for help, but their signals cut off mid-word. 200 ships disappeared in silence. Only the Admiral's flagship remained. His voice, once strong, now broke with terror. "What are you?" he shouted into the void. The answer came not in words, but in the warship's presence. His flagship trembled, its systems shutting down, lights flickering into darkness. The Admiral's last scream echoed before his ship too vanished, leaving only silence behind. The rest of the galaxy's fleets recoiled in horror. Thousands of ships now faced one impossible vessel, and not a single one dared fire again. The voice returned, calm, deep, and final. "You were warned." Fear gripped the fleets. Commanders who had never known defeat now looked at their crews and saw only despair. They could not fight this. They could not escape it. Across the channels, one old voice whispered what everyone thought but no one wanted to say. This is why humans are feared. This is what they were hiding." No one answered. The silence was heavy again, pressing on every mind, crushing every ounce of courage. The human warship floated among them, a shadow of impossible power, and the galaxy realized something that froze their souls. This was only the beginning. The galaxy had always believed in numbers. More ships, more weapons, more firepower, this was how wars were won. But against the human warship, numbers meant nothing. 200 ships had vanished like smoke, leaving not even wreckage behind. The fleets that remained stared into the dark, unable to understand what they had just seen. On the command bridge of the largest alien flagship, the Supreme Admiral of the Coalition tightened his claws around the edge of his chair. His mind spun with questions. How could one ship stand against thousands? How could it erase fleets without firing a single visible weapon? Every law of physics, every rule of war had been broken. He stood, voice sharp as he addressed the Council of Commanders through the channels. "We cannot run. If we retreat, this thing will follow. If we wait, it will break us one by one. We must strike together. Every empire, every ship, all at once." His words spread across the fleets like fire. Some commanders agreed. Others hesitated, but fear pushed them all. Waiting meant death. Fighting meant at least a chance. Slowly, the order was given. Thousands of ships began to move, forming a circle around the human warship. Engines burned, weapons locked, shields charged. The dark void lit up with the glow of countless vessels preparing for war. Still, the human warship floated in silence. No movement. No sign of fear. It waited as if mocking them. "Begin," the Supreme Admiral whispered. And the galaxy unleashed its fury. Beams of pure energy crossed the void. Missiles streaked like comets. Plasma cannons fired with the strength to split planets. The soundless battlefield lit up brighter than a star, as thousands of ships poured their fire into the lone vessel. For seconds, the darkness disappeared in a storm of destruction. Explosions layered upon explosions. Shockwaves rippled across space, and even the stars seemed to tremble. When the fire finally faded, the fleet stared at the place where the human ship had floated. For a moment, hope flickered. Perhaps it was gone. Perhaps it had been destroyed. But then the smoke cleared. The warship was still there, untouched. Not a single mark, not a single scratch. Across the fleets, voices broke into chaos. Some cried in disbelief, others shouted for more fire, others demanded retreat. But before anyone could give another order, the human warship finally moved. Slowly, almost lazily, it raised what looked like a weapon. A single black cannon slid from its side, glowing faintly with light that did not belong to any spectrum known to science. The weapon did not charge with noise or energy. Instead, silence deepened around it, as if space itself feared what was coming. Then it fired. There was no flash, no explosion, no roar, just a beam of darkness that cut through the fleets like a blade through glass. Ships vanished instantly where the beam touched, erased from existence. Not destroyed, not broken, erased. Panic spread. Commanders screamed for evasive action. Ships scattered, but the beam followed, carving through thousands of vessels in a single line. It was not a weapon of war. It was a judgment. The Supreme Admiral shouted orders, his heart racing. "All fleets, scatter. Do not stay in formation." But it was too late. Another silent strike tore through the armadas, and hundreds more vanished. For the first time, the warship's voice returned, echoing across every channel, every mind. "Logic will not save you. Numbers will not save you. Leave now, or be nothing." The words carried more than sound. They carried weight, pressing against the hearts of every soldier. Many felt their hands shake, their courage shatter. Some even abandoned their posts, running from their stations, though there was nowhere to go. But still, some fought. Missiles flew, cannons burned, smaller ships rushed forward in desperate sacrifice. They aimed to ram the human vessel, to break it with their own bodies. None reached. Each ship that came close simply dissolved into dust, as if the warship rejected their existence. The fleets realized then, this was not just a machine. It was not just metal and fire. It was something else, something that defied every rule of nature. On one distant command bridge, an old alien captain whispered to his crew, "This is no ship. It is a will. A human will, given form." His crew trembled, for they felt he was right. The warship drifted through the chaos, calm as a predator in an ocean of prey. Every movement was precise, every strike silent, but the destruction it left behind was endless. Where it moved, ships vanished. Where it turned, fleets broke apart in terror, and yet in all its power it did not finish them. It could have erased the entire coalition in minutes, but it did not. It only struck enough to show them the truth. Finally, after what felt like hours, the fleets pulled back, broken and terrified. Half of their forces were gone. The rest floated in silence, too afraid to attack again. The human warship stopped its advance. For a long moment it hovered among the shattered remains of fleets, its scars glowing faintly, its presence pressing on every soul. Then it spoke again, one final time. "You thought you could erase us. You thought we were weak. Remember this, humanity does not end. Humanity defies." The words echoed across the galaxy, carried on every frequency, heard by every soldier, every commander, every living being. And in that moment, the galaxy understood. This was not just a warship. This was the first strike in a war no one could ever win. The battlefield had gone quiet. Wreckage drifted like frozen shadows, though much of it was gone, erased by the impossible weapons of the human warship. What remained of the alien fleets hovered at a distance, afraid to move, afraid even to speak. Every commander knew they had seen something beyond their understanding, but fear was not the only thing spreading across the galaxy. Whispers traveled faster than light. What was this ship? Where did it come from? How could a human vessel stand against thousands and still remain untouched? On one distant flagship, an old historian sat in silence, his eyes fixed on the massive shape of the warship. He whispered to himself, "I have read of this. Not in science, not in war manuals. In old tales. In the forgotten war." His crew turned to him, confused. The historian spoke louder now, his voice trembling with both awe and fear. "This is not a ship built by governments, not a weapon of any empire. This is something older, something made when humans were nearly erased. This is their oath." The younger officers frowned. They had heard stories of humans, rebels, fighters, survivors, but never of such a creation. "What do you mean, old one?" The historian closed his eyes. Memories of ancient scrolls, forbidden data files, and hushed legends filled his mind. Long ago, when humans first entered the stars, they faced a war. Not like this, worse, entire systems burned. They lost whole worlds. No empire came to their aid. They stood alone, and in that darkness they swore they would never kneel again. They built something that was not bound by science alone, something made with their blood, their rage, and their will to exist. They called it a warship. But in truth it was more than metal. It was a living memory. Across the fleets, similar whispers spread. Commanders and soldiers remembered old warnings. Never push humans too far, never corner them. For when humans were desperate, they created things no one could explain. Inside the human warship itself, silence reigned. No crew could be seen, no signals detected, yet it moved with purpose. Some believed there were humans inside controlling it. Others believed it was controlled by an artificial mind. But the oldest feared something else entirely, that the ship was not controlled by anyone. It was human spirit itself given form. The alien coalition gathered in secret communication, voices heavy with despair. This cannot continue. If this ship belongs to the humans, then they will rise again. They were supposed to be weak, broken, scattered. How did they build this? No, you do not understand. This is not new. It has always been here, waiting. We just did not see it. The fleets fell into silence, because the truth was unbearable. The warship was not a weapon of the future. It was a remnant of the past, something humans had created when the galaxy tried to erase them, a promise that even if every colony fell, Even if every world turned to ash, one ship would remain to remind the universe of their defiance. And now, it had awakened. The warship drifted slowly, scars glowing faintly in the void. Every mark on its hull told a story. Battles fought, enemies destroyed, victories carved in silence. It did not shine with the perfection of alien vessels. It looked broken, stitched together, almost ugly. But that ugliness was truth. It was survival made real. One alien commander, his voice hollow, whispered, "It should not even fly. Look at it. By our logic, it should have fallen apart. And yet it moves, it fights, it wins." And that was the secret. Logic could not explain it. Science could not define it. This warship was a paradox because humans themselves were a paradox. Fragile bodies, short lives, weaker technology, but an unbreakable will. The fleets finally understood. The ship was not dangerous because of weapons or shields. It was dangerous because it carried what no machine should carry: humanity's refusal to die. On the dark bridge of the warship, a voice echoed again, reaching every fleet, every commander, every frightened soldier. "You wanted to erase us. You wanted to forget. But we are the wound that never heals. We are the fire that does not die." The words burned through the channels, heavy with rage and grief. Many soldiers felt tears rise in their eyes, though they did not know why. The voice was not just speaking, it was remembering. It was speaking for every human who had fallen in forgotten wars, every life lost, every child who never saw another sunrise. The warship's presence grew heavier, pressing against the fleets. Systems flickered again, lights dimmed, but the ship did not attack. It waited as if demanding they choose. The Supreme Admiral of the Coalition lowered his head. For the first time in his long life, he felt hopeless. He had commanded victories across galaxies, but this was not a battle. This was judgment. "This is why they are feared," he whispered to himself. "Not because of what they build, but because of what they become when all else is lost." The Council of Commanders said nothing. No orders came. No fleets moved. Every ship, every soldier, every empire was trapped in the same realization. The human warship was not a miracle of science. It was a truth the galaxy had tried to forget. Humanity, no matter how broken, no matter how defeated, always found a way to rise again. And this ship was proof. The fleets that once roared with power now floated like broken shadows. Silence stretched across the void, a silence so deep that even the hum of engines felt ashamed to break it. Where once thousands of alien ships had surrounded the impossible human vessel, now only fragments and frightened survivors remained. The warship stood at the center, unmoving, scarred, and eternal. It did not shine like the perfect machines of alien empires. It did not gleam with polished armor or radiant banners. It was dark, heavy, and wounded. But it was still there. It had endured everything, and its endurance was a weapon more terrifying than any cannon. On the bridge of a surviving flagship, the Supreme Admiral stared at the vessel with hollow eyes. His crew whispered around him, voices trembling. "We cannot defeat it. It chooses when to kill and when to spare. If it wanted, none of us would remain." The Admiral raised his head, his voice, once sharp with pride, now cracked with despair. "This warship is not here to fight. It is here to remind us, and if we do not listen, it will finish what it started." Across the remaining fleets, the same truth settled like ice in every heart. They had fought. They had lost. And yet, strangely, the warship had not ended them. It had given them time. Time to decide. Then, for the final time, the voice came. It did not come through channels or signals. It came through space itself, through the bones of every being, through the core of every ship, deep, heavy, unshakable. "You believed you could erase us. You believed we would break. But we are still here. We are the shadow in your skies, the storm at your gates. We are humanity, and we do not end." The words carried like fire. Fleets that had once conquered worlds now trembled like children. The voice continued, colder, sharper. "This is your reckoning. You have seen what one ship can do. Imagine if there were more. Imagine if we chose not to warn, but to erase. You have one choice. Stand with us, or disappear." The silence that followed was unbearable. Commanders looked at each other, unable to breathe. The galaxy had lived by logic, by numbers, by power. But here was something beyond logic, beyond numbers, beyond power. Something that should not exist and yet did. One alien captain, his voice weak, whispered to his crew, It does not matter what we choose. Even if we stand against them, we are nothing. Even if we stand with them, we will never be their equal. They are not like us. His crew nodded in silence because they knew he spoke the truth. The warship moved one last time. Slowly it turned its massive body, scars catching faint starlight. It did not rush. It did not chase. It simply drifted away, leaving behind wreckage, silence, and fear. The fleets held their position, too afraid to follow, too afraid to fire. And then, as suddenly as it had arrived, the warship vanished into the dark. No signal, no trace, no sound. It was as if the void itself had swallowed it whole, but its presence did not fade. The memory of what they had seen lingered heavier than any shadow. Every commander knew the truth. The galaxy would never be the same. The Supreme Admiral finally sank into his chair. His claws shook against the cold metal. He whispered words that spread across his crew, words that echoed like a prophecy. This is why we feared them, not because of their numbers, not because of their science, but because they do what no one else dares. They defy. The words carried far. Soon they became whispers across systems, across worlds. Everywhere the same story was told. A human warship, impossible and eternal, had faced the galaxy and won without mercy. Empires that once mocked humans now whispered their name in fear. Soldiers who once saw them as weak now saw them as unbreakable, and leaders who once planned their extinction now prayed never to face them again. In the silence of space, a question remained, one that no one dared to speak aloud but everyone carried in their hearts. If one warship could defy all logic, how many more waited in the dark? The galaxy did not know, and perhaps that was the greatest weapon of all. Because fear was not a beam, not a missile, not a cannon. Fear was a shadow that never left. Fear was the warship's true victory. And as the survivors drifted home, as empires rebuilt and rulers trembled, one truth remained unshaken. Humanity had given its warning. No one knew when the warship would return. No one knew if it would come again. But every world, every soldier, every empire understood one thing. If it did return, there would be no second warning.